Thank you. So what's interesting is the bus driver is all gangstered up with a mask on, or the camel. He manipulated the bus system because I've been, my goal today is to get off on, take the bus, and get off on Penrose to get into exposing how organized crime is basically behind all of these campers, these homeless campers. And then along with, what the fuck is this for? And then along with getting these fools the campers that are substandard, to say the least, with the intention of them basically not being able to get away in one sense, but then in the other sense not being able to move. So then they create these camper compounds. So my nose is caught onto that, and my goal was to get off on that light over there, Penrose. And the Cholo bus driver was pressing all kinds of buttons so that the only stop that was not announced, as this next stop was Penrose. So, but we were at the caught at a light, so that's why I recognized it. So then I pressed the button, even though we were at the bus stop. He waited to so there's one for starter. I think it's interesting because there were a couple other that's a trailer more system. So it was yesterday on the news, I found a report from a similar situation somewhere down more in LA. But the unique thing was that they interviewed what they called the tenant as well as the owner of the RV. So in that particular case, there was an owner, a black guy, who, when his story, used to be a drug addict and used to be homeless and wanted to help people in his mind, get people off of the street. So he buy dilapidated trailers or campers and rent them out for $500 a month. In one unit, the tenants claimed that 14 people lived in it. And, they complained about the problem, it wasn't good and so forth. But he was very upfront, like, look, when they don't pay me rent, I got to come down here with the whole posse. So that's because he's a private contractor, if you want to call it that, an independent operator. In the Valley, you don't have a system like that because you have organized crime. And so organized crime, they don't give a fuck about the $500 rent. They want activity. So homeless people got to do a task to earn their rent. Now, I'm walking the long way because I could have just gone straight up San Fernando or Tuxford. It's the same distance. But I'm not going to be dissuaded. And I'm curious too if so I've come through here twice before on the other side. So all of these are rented to these people for ostensibly the purpose of collecting a monthly fee. Now, the people that rent them, just like the guy in the video, they have no conditions as to what you can and can't do to them. They don't say, hey, don't mess them up, because they don't intend on them being reusable or resellable in a sense. They can obviously reuse them with another rat just ran. So this is how these communities get started. Oh, look at, they got new shit too. I like too that there are all kind of mechanic shit going on. Like the guy at the end, he's fixing this is so where I walked before. There was a guy fixing. There were other campers, and there was a guy. Here's a little one fixing a little go-kart like that, but it was blue. So I think it's hilarious that they had all this mechanic shit going on, yet they got all these broken down fucking cars. So, on another note, like I said, I've been through there twice before. That's the most lively activity. The two times that I went by before, there was nobody. There was the front one that looks like he's doing mechanic shop on that camper, or not the camper, the go-kart. He leaves there was a light on. Like, I actually told myself I wasn't gonna go that way again, because the two times that I did go that way, the best I could say is it smelled like burnt plastic. Now, that's just being conservative, because I don't know what the smell of cooking meth or cooking fentanyl smells like, but there's the persistent smell of cooking plastic. But I walked, like I said, the other thing too is I walked on the opposite side of the street that I walked the two times before, and I actually walked in the street, because the other time I made it a point to walk on the sidewalk, because I don't like the fact. So this is another point too, with renting these things out. In the very least, you're dealing with a community of people that have difficulty with impulse control, okay? Which is a psychological, scientific, it's not it's not a mental disability, it's just a state of being. So in the very least, they have, that's the second time that car passed me. Little. Look, he's going fast to get out. So, you gotta understand. Like I said, this is big business. Is it like that old black guy in LA renting to make, he had 4, so he's making $2,000 a month. This is organized crime. They got higher objectives, to say the least. So, okay, what was I at? Oh, so poor impulse control. So They blame, obviously, in that context, people with poor impulse control. They're not just homeless people. They're various levels too. You have functioning alcoholics are poor impulse control. People that smoke, poor impulse control. People that are over aggressive with children, poor impulse control. People that have to chronically masturbate, poor impulse control. People that spend money compulsively, that's poor impulse control. When you get into like various stages of human development, you see it in youth because you have like driving fast. Like when I was younger and I had cars, I drove what could be considered recklessly. I drove really fast. In fact, I had one friend who we went to Arizona. We drove to Arizona, and by the time we got back, when we got out of the car, it's crazy. He closed the door. He's like this. I swear, I am never riding in the car when you drive again. And he held to his word too. It was weird. Did I get in accidents? I don't think I got in one accident, but it wasn't my fault. It was I don't even actually know because I didn't report that because it was an old man. I thought I was in a kind of a beat up car. He started backing out of the space, and I had time to move, but I could tell he wasn't aware. I wasn't sure if he was bullying at first, and then so he bumped into me. He got out of the car. He apologized. You know, and I saw he was an old man. I was like, look, no, that's fine, buddy. Just look at my car. He was like, are you sure? He's like, let me. I was like, yeah, look, don't worry. You can't even see anything. So, but I got tickets. Like doing 65 and a 35 and doing 90 and a 65. So that amounts to poor impulse control as well. Eating. People that need to eat. Poor impulse control. So, when you get people that are chronically display poor impulse control behavior patterns, and then you now, and one thing too, from a Buddhist standpoint, not that I'm a Buddhist, but poor impulse control is below human. It's even below animalistic, because animals, like there's a cat right there, animals display impulse control, like dogs with babies, so forth. Oftentimes cats can do it with babies too. So you have a bunch of people with human beings with poor impulse control but human creativity. You have another group of people who want to exploit their poor impulse control. So they get them these trailers because they want to keep them in a dilapidated situation that makes them desperate, that makes them useful to them, so they can get them to do whatever they want whenever they need it, which primarily has to relate to moving narcotics from one place to another. And in the event that they do have a trailer that does work, they could use a trailer because cops don't like pulling those things over, or even going inside of them. That's one of the reasons they have those situations there with all the stolen material, stolen bikes in particular. Cops, for fear for their safety, which is sensible. I mean, it's only a job that they have. I mean, people want to make it into something big because of a movie, but and the truth of the matter is, cops just got jobs. And a job, in a job environment, pay determines no trash bags. Serious? It's like a job that pays minimum wage. You don't pay a manager minimum wage. Why not? Because minimum wage, even in its name, implies minimum performance. So that's just basically keep the position marginally, keep the integrity of the position marginally intact. But in no way, shape, or form implies going above and beyond anything. So, to expect a person is getting paid less than $100,000 a year to intentionally go out of their way to engage with people like that in an environment like that is stupid, is irrational, nonsensical. It's pure ego, and it's what Jung would consider, Carl Jung would call projecting, because the person that implies that type of duty is the very person that doesn't have it in them to perform the task. And that is where psychology is a type of, but that in its own right is a type of poor impulse control. Because they don't have the ability, you basically don't have the ability to stop yourself from being empathetic, essentially. You think because police, the description that you have in your head of what a cop is, that you don't need to resort to or apply or implement empathy, because it doesn't matter what their personal feelings are. They get paid to do a job. And you expect, which is funny because, so people, one level, they demand that cops do more than whatever they're doing, whether it behave better or police more aggressively. And then it gets into the difference between policing more aggressively and policing more efficiently, and all these nuances. But in the end, hey kitty, you want to say hi? I'll pet you if you let me. Come here. I like cats. So come on. I ain't got no food, but I'll pay you. But once you get into those environments, you're surrounded by a type of utter filth that depletes your psychological um, equilibrium as to the as to value in human life, because they are human beings. You recognize, see, dehumanizing people has various functions. Sometimes it's a coping mechanism when you're visually or even aromatically, nasally, or audibly subjected to trauma that induces pain. Like I just watched the movie Sound of Freedom, and one of the things that the cop makes a point about, his name is Timothy, is that in filing his reports, he has to watch everything. So when they confiscate stuff, he's got to watch all the videos in order to describe on the record what's happening. Like, so it starts off in one scene. Um, this guy turns on the camera, and then he readjusts it, and there's like a 6-year-old little boy or 5-year-old little boy on the bed, and the guy goes and gets on the bed, and then they do a very good job of conveying how the officer watches. They close up on his eye, then they show almost giving a reflection, and then they show the screen with minimal activity on the what he's watching, and then they cut to a close-up of his pen on the paper and the words that he's having to write down. Or, no, he's typing. I believe obviously he's typing now. So, and he makes a point later on in the movie that he's got to see everything and how that kills a part of him. Well, engaging people like that from a police standpoint who get into really, okay, some people want to become police. Yes, that's fine, to be bullies. Sure, okay, that's cool. But the vast majority of people fantasize about being a cop, because even the people that criticize cops, their criticism is based on their fantasy version of a cop, which they see themselves being able to fulfill, which is a human being helping other human beings. And that's the superficial gist of it. They don't see human beings having to struggle. Oh, he's down there. Come on. They don't see human beings having to struggle with humanity as a philosophical value system inside of their head. Because when you start to question the validity, the value, or the usefulness of humanity, then that also, whether it be like the movie Sound of Freedom, hunting down pedophiles, or a cop having to deal with, we call them homeless, but there's other terms that they could be called. I personally, I believe that something like 70 to 80% of these individuals in these situations, and maybe I'm projecting because I qualify as this, possibly, so it takes one to know one kind of scenario, are narcissistic personality disorder abusers that have abused their way into an isolated state of life in which they can't turn to anybody, and at the same time too, they inherently know that they can't function, not because they have a mental disorder, because they're fucking absolute total assholes. And I struggle with this, like even on my job here. I mean, I have fantasy versions of what it is to be an employee, and I have to think of stuff like when I worked at the hospital in the ER. One thing that I found interesting is that the EMTs, the emergency medical technicians, who basically would be on the ambulances doing medical response, they all incessantly, except for the trash guy's coming out, except for maybe one. No, let me think hard. Yeah, except for one. It was an Asian guy. I think he was Japanese, older guy. they all hated, I'm talking about incessantly hated their job, and they hated having to deal with different aspects of humans. Um, and who is another one? And there were some nurses too, to be fair. I don't know, be fair, be honest, that had absolute but hatred for their job. But I mean, I guess it. One girl in particular who was an EMT. It was obvious it was a needed the money situation, and but she didn't hold back. She was very articulate about, I hate this job. I only do this for the money. I don't know if her goal was to become a nurse. I was there when an EMT did, two EMTs transitioned. They finished nursing school and transitioned into nurses from EMTs. So finding an ideal job is almost a narcissistic personality disorder delusion. Thinking that, oh, there was a Filipino guy that did the transport, and he worked with, transport was thought of as a laid back kind of thing. So you had some, it's easy, it's the easiest. Okay, when I applied for the hospital, there are 3 jobs available to me: the kitchen, EVS, which is janitorial, and transport, because those are uncertified positions. So transport, you do need CPR, but once you have CPR, it's pretty easy to get into. So you have a wide array of economic and demographic backgrounds, and because it's seen as an easy job, you do get a type of people that are looking for an easy job. It's perceived as an easy job, but as in all things reality, nothing is as is perceived. So the people that perceive it as an easy job, that take the job as a transporter, they live their life in a way to make it an easy job on them. Therefore, they don't. I got the door. Don't trip. Therefore, they don't do their workload, and other people got to pick up the workload. So in that event, this is where the Filipino guy came in. But that fool had 3 kids, and the catch is he apparently had no objective of pursuing a higher education and moving up in any rank. So he had already done it for 15 years. And his greatest struggle was having to do other people's job. But he would he was not a narcissistic personality disorder individual. Like I would say, I've got some in me. He would show up to work early. There was a janitor too, a Filipino janitor, that he worked after. At nighttime, it was an Armenian janitor who had been there 20 years. And that guy was, in his mind, he was getting back the money that the hospital owed him, which may be true in one sense. So he did the below the bare minimum, just below the bare minimum. Like he would even drive a little truck, we had little tunnels, and smoke his cigarettes in the little tunnels. So the Filipino guy that came in the morning, that fool, the janitor, he would come in like an hour or an hour and a half early and not clock in and start picking up the slack what the Armenian left, so that when he clocked in, his shift would be normal. So the transport guy, I mean, he was an older guy. He was probably like around my age, in his 40s. And we'll call them slackers, were all in their late 20s and early 30s. but they use clever tricks to disappear and so forth like that. And then this guy saw it as a job that supported his family and that he didn't have any leeway to fuck around. So if he needed to do more, he needed to do more because he needed the job. He expressed frustration with the job, but not in the same way that I perceive frustrations with jobs, like concepts of overemphasizing or fetishing, obsessing over concepts of justice and fairness. It's like, look, it doesn't matter whether it's just or it's fair. I mean, it's a situation, and you you it's not even grin and bear it or make the best of it. You make it work. And this gets into, well, I'm getting distracted a little bit, a lot. So with this, back to this poor impulse control and the homeless community that are in these trailers. You see this in Sylmar, where they have corralled them all into one area. Now the crazy thing about that place is that, again, I say this about property and organized crime in LA. It's just like with the weed shops. You want to stop the illegal weed shops, but first you have to have a appreciation for the legal weed shops and respect them as much as you respect the Catholic priests that rape little boys that you don't arrest. I'm talking about cops in California, because they don't arrest Catholic priests that rape little boys, but they also don't arrest, or I mean, they ticket operators of illegal weed shops if they can identify them, and then the ticket is something like $2,000 for a month or some weird stupid shit, which they make in excess per day. So this is why illegal weed shops don't get shut down. But the property owners that allow the illegal weed shops into their property are not targeted, because I believe that if law enforcement officers were to start targeting property owners, it could be management firms, law firms, legal lawyers, groups of lawyers and stuff like that, that the organized criminal element of the system will be illuminated further. So these people are not on private property, they're on city property. But the people that rent them the trailers. Now, see, there's a thing too that I realized when I'm talking about this, because the guy with the blue go-kart, he wasn't there when I walked past under the bridge. So the bus driver actually helped me out, because I was able to see that some of these mobile homes are mobile and they do move. So I noticed, based on the fact that I'm talking about, it was exactly the same model as the red one that the guy's working on. It was just blue. So that showed me, because I was homeless for 5 years, that those two fools have some kind of connection, a bond or friendship or something like that. And it was kind of like, oh, I'm gonna fix mine first. Now, the trailer is gone from the first bridge I went under by Tuxford. But when all that concealed area that's blocked off, where they take off the whole sidewalk, that's poor impulse control. That's allowing them more and more with the, I'm having a hard time doing this. With the RV comes a sense of entitlement. With the sense of entitlement for a narcissistic personality disorder person comes, well, how far does my entitlement go? I could take it as far as I want to take it. It'll go as far as I push it. And then I'm going to take more because I deserve more. So I'm not just going to have an RV parked on the side of the street. I'm going to take up the whole fucking sidewalk. I'm not going to just take up the whole fucking sidewalk outside of my RV. I'm going to start taking up the whole sidewalk underneath the fucking bridge and turn it into my own private thing, because I deserve it. And I think that it would be just, lawful, and fair to create a task force that takes them, because you don't want them, look, they want to make themselves at home. And when they make themselves at home, they degrade the integrity of a community. Whether the community is already ghetto, if you want to call it that, they degrade it further and they make it more dangerous. Because from that epicenter, they branch out, and they all that stolen merchandise comes from basically the poor community around them, because that's their reach. And this is evident in Santa Monica, where more homeless communities kicking up and more property crimes come up, because that goes hand in hand. As much time as they spend at property crimes, I was homeless 5 years. They can spend getting a guard card and becoming a security guard and getting paid like $17 an hour just to sit around on their ass and watch their cell phone. But their narcissistic personality disorder says, I ain't no fucking security guard. I'm better than that. I ain't gonna I'm gonna sell myself out like that. I'm gonna take what I want when I want it and make whatever I can out of it. And it sounds all nice, but behind the veil of this independent activity, spirit, persona, because projection is psychology and projection is a reversal, is a deeply entrenched allegiance to organized crime, which is just as structured, if not more structured, than civil society. So their claim to want to be free from systems of control are a facade. They dig themselves deeper and deeper into systems of control, because in organized crime, in society, when you fuck up, put you in jail or fire you or lower your credit or something like that. In organized crime, they kill you or they beat you. There's one of the beating is a potential thing. So for them to say that they're seeking freedom and then going into the ranks and the service of organized crime goes to show that mercy, like Nietzsche emphasized, pity in particular, is a disease that will destroy society, because they thrive off of pandering to pity and saying, "Oh, but I don't have an opportunity." They have plenty of opportunity. It's just the opportunities they take are based on their system of values and are meant to create victims, because that gives them a sense of self-worth, power, and control. So I think a task force would be reasonable to literally kick those people out, round their shit up, and fucking take them to dumpsters, create jobs by taking them to dumpsters, and grind them to a fucking dust. And those people cry, oh, they're taking my shit. It's not even their shit. Everything that they have is stolen, and the campers are organized crime renting in order to exploit them. But they're going to cry, but it's mine, it's mine. And the sidewalk area that they take up is the cities. If they want something, when I came, I didn't want anything for 5 years. That's why I was homeless. But once I realized, okay, I need to get something, I need to have something. You know what I did? I changed my behavior pattern and I became a security guard first and foremost. I started making money like that. I rented a room. I'm not a rich billionaire or anything like that, but I work on a lunch truck, so I'm not like living large. But unless you use force against people with poor impulse control, they're going to push beyond the limits of reasonable conduct, demeanor, or ethics. And the more you allow them to do that, the more their ego is going to be inflated, and the sense of victimizing people is going to be deflated, so that their sense of entitlement will become hurting people for whatever reason in their head. So I say stop them. I say, if it ain't their trailer, take it, confiscate it, find out whose trailer it is, and penalize that person for all of the parking infractions, because that's another loophole that they're trying to do here. The people that own those trailers, okay, they're intentionally giving them to people with the knowledge that they're going to be violating city ordinances on multiple levels. But their justification is, well, if it's not in my possession, the city can't get me, even though I own it and I'm profiting off of it one way or the other. So again, ownership. But English common law is designed to protect the crown and the nobility from the crimes that they commit from the peasantry. And now we see in civil society the way English common law has this way of fomenting corruption and societal degradation. So that's my whole point.